Hey YouTube, what is going on? Fallout here. And I don't know if you follow a YouTuber named Demon Joe, but he put out a video called 20 PvE weapons that I can't live without. And I really enjoyed that video. And I thought it would be a good idea to make kind of my own version of that video, covering both PvE and PvP weapons. So today we're going to go through 50 weapons in D2 that I can't live without. My most favorite weapons across the board for both activities of the game. And not necessarily the most meta / overpowered weapons, although many of them certainly will be strong and quite meta, but they're just kind of my favorite weapons across the board historically. Many of them have, risen and fallen with different metas, but I still enjoy using them. So let's go over 50 weapons that I personally can't live without and will probably always use in D2, unless they get completely destroyed. Starting off the PvP list at number 25, we have Shayura's Wrath. There are many weekends when Trials goes live that I really don't care at all what the Trials loot is. I'll just kind of, let it go, either play for fun or just do something else with my time. But Shayura's Wrath has been a weapon that historically I've always enjoyed grinding. When it first came out, I wanted to make sure I had a lot of rolls in my vault and a 5 out of 5 god roll. And ever since the gun came out, it's just been really fun to use in PvP. Incredibly persistent weapon. I enjoyed Shayura before the huge explosion of SMGs in the meta, which was not too long ago. Bungie had to change a couple of things in the sandbox because of big problem children like the Immortal, the Adept Immortal god roll, and things like the Ikelos SMG with having, a lot of range and a lot of zoom. But, doesn't matter. Even with all the changes that Shayura has gone through over the years, I really still enjoy using it. I find it very consistent. I enjoy it both on M&K and on controller, which I can't say for a lot of weapons on my list today. And it's got great options on paper for PvP. You've got things like dynamic sway reduction, you've got moving target, you've got perpetual motion, you've got kill clip, you've got tap the trigger, adrenaline junkie, elemental capacitor. If you're crazy, you have golden tricorn. A lot of very unique options that make it feel quite good. It's really a beaming long-range SMG, which is what the best SMGs often do. I don't know if there's ever going to be a future meta that completely dumpsters SMGs to the point where I just won't enjoy using Shayura. I don't think that will ever happen. I'd be shocked. But yeah, no matter what happens to SMGs, Shayura always feels incredibly consistent to me, and I do enjoy using it very much. Next on the PvP list at number 24, we have the BXR, which is kind of a tribute weapon, a love letter from Bungie to their OG title, Halo. I mean, not their OG, I think Marathon is their OG, or whatever. I don't know how far back Bungie's been making games, but it's a love letter to a game that they made, Halo, and a very popular franchise. And the BXR was kind of like a staple weapon that I've loved using since Halo 2, and when they brought it to Destiny 2, really enjoyed it. I think they put it into the sandbox and it hit the right way almost immediately. I'm not really like a diehard extreme lover like somebody like Drewski. If you don't know Drewski, he's a fantastic PvP player. Mains controller, he loves the BXR. He has like a ridiculous amount of kills on the BXR. I want to say like 50,000. I'm not kidding. You should look up. It's a really high number. But it's a very enjoyable weapon on both mouse and keyboard and controller. I do enjoy using it a little bit more on controller when I play. The majority of the times I play PvP these days are on M&K, but still, very good weapon. It has a unique weapon frame, which allows you to have better stability and accuracy when you're firing from the hip, which is kind of a tie-in to Halo, because a lot of basically every weapon in OG Halo had very good, consistent hip fire. Like you would constantly be engaging people at mid-range or close range, sometimes even long range from the hip. Not really something that happens very often in D2, but the BXR, very fun weapon. I got a couple of rolls I'm hanging on to, including some that you can't get anymore. I have a BXR in my vault with the rangefinder on it, which you can't get on the gun anymore. That weapon was a safe from the great Dado vault purge years ago, which I may need to do another one. Knock on wood, because I got too much crap in my vault, but he's not touching the BXRs. I really enjoy them. You've got other good options. You've got Kill Clip, which is very fun. You've got Gut Shot Straight, which is not a perk a lot of people enjoy, but some people really go to bat for it. You've got Eye of the Storm, and you've got the very unique perk Blunt Execution Rounds, which allows you to pull off a melee attack, and then for the next few seconds, you just have a ton of extra damage output. I think it's 100% extra damage output for PvP until you fire your next shot. It's kind of a reference to back in the day in Halo 2. There was a button combo that you could do called the BXR. Basically, you melee, X to cancel your melee animation returning to your Spartan, and then R to shoot. So it's basically you melee into a shot immediately. The melee takes off the shields, and then you shoot them right in the head. So it's kind of a love letter to that button combo from Halo 2 that people did in PvP all the time. And that's a great weapon perk. It's very fun if you're new to D2 and you just haven't, for whatever reason, got around to using the BXR yet. Super enjoyable. It kind of gets overshadowed by a lot of hand cannons in the current meta, including hard-hitting, big damage options like the Igneous Hammer, which might be on today's list. It is. But yeah, it's a very fun weapon, consistent, good at close range, good at long range, great primary. Definitely check it out if you have not already. Next weapon on our list for PvP is the Fighting Lion. Now, a lot of people, I feel like they really don't like this gun, and for very good reason. And everybody else kind of sleeps on the gun. It's really a jerk troll weapon, but it does its job very well. It has really two jobs. One, again, is to troll the enemy team, which it does very easily. And two is it kind of punishes people who camp in a certain way on specific maps, which I'll get to in a minute. So the first part about a Fighting Lion, which people really don't like about the gun, is that it's kind of a we have special weapon ammo at home type vibe. If you're a jerk and you're in comp or trials and you run out of special ammo, if you're running an energy special weapon, you can open your menu real quick and put on Fighting Lion because it has primary ammo, even though it's kind of a special, it's like a junior special weapon. So again, if you don't care what other people think about you, you run out of ammo with your special in trials, open up your menu real quick, put on Fighting Lion. Now you have extra special ammo. So kind of a very rude weapon, but if you're really going extreme for the Lighthouse and you're trying to, make sure you're doing every tiny little strategy to the max to make sure that you're doing as well as you can, Fighting Lion should probably be in your character's menu at all times. Weapons like, maps, trials maps like Wormhaven. Fighting Lion does really well on maps like Wormhaven. If you're in a situation where maybe you're trying to get top control in the middle of the map and the enemy team is kind of camping behind that big glass window and you have the Fighting Lion, so easy to repeatedly bank shot grenades around the corner with Fighting Lion and just troll the hell out of them. It does not hit as hard as other special weapon grenade launchers, but again, that's because it uses primary ammo, but it does enough. Really, the point of using Fighting Lion in PvP is to whittle your opponent's health down just a little bit. Around corners, fire it over a Titan barricade. You're really trying to just edge out your opponent a little bit. Like you're playing footsies with them almost with the Fighting Lion. Bank it around a corner, get them just a little bit weak. That way, when you engage with them with your primary weapon, hand cannon, SMG, battle rifle, whatever, battle rifle, pulse rifle, they should be weak enough that you can now easily win the 1v1 because you've chip damaged them successfully with the Fighting Lion. So it's a troll weapon for sure. I completely admit a lot of people hate it, but it is super viable in PvP, especially in game types like Trials. And that is why it's a weapon I will always have with me in my back pocket if I need it in certain situations. Coming in at number 22, we have Crimson, which is a classic PvP hand cannon. Admittedly, I don't use it as much these days, but it is always laying around. I respect the weapon a lot. Basically, if I decide that I want to take a break from playing M&K and I want to, plug in the controller, do a little controller PvP, I will always have Crimson ready to go in my back pocket. If you're a new D2 player and you play on controller and you hear people talking about hand cannons a lot in PvP, oh, hand cannons, everybody loves hand cannons, and they're not really clicking with you just yet, you could always try out Crimson. It's not really a hand cannon. It is a hand cannon, but it's not. It's kind of like a pulse rifle. But it is very, very good on controller, I would say. Very good at mid-range. The reticle friction on controller helps you really land the majority of your shots in the burst fire. And the utility is crazy. You kill somebody and you get a health pack. That is really damn good in PvP across the board. Doesn't matter if you're in 6v6, if you're in 3v3. Yeah, that utility is always going to be very exceptional. It's also got some really good weapon skins going for it, some good ornaments, which I think make the sights a little bit cleaner. Not necessarily bordering on pay-to-win territory, but dabbling in that area, where again, if you put on a different ornament, it's like, ooh, the scope looks way cleaner than it did before. But yeah, a lot of people don't like Crimson at all because they claim it's incredibly easy to use. It is. And it flinches people a lot. So I would say that it's always going to be in my back pocket for that reason, because it's easy to use, it's effective. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a top tier option. I think at the high ceiling level of PvP, people kind of know how to outplay Crimson a little bit. It's not as good at peek shooting as other hand cannons are, aka kind of popping out from behind a wall or a corner, hitting somebody with a downtown headshot and then going back. Because again, it's more like a pulse rifle. You have to kind of wait for it to fire the full burst before you can play the peek shoot game. So, but even still, it's a very good hand cannon, really reliable, and I think you should check it out, especially if you are on controller. At number 21, we have the Mechabre, which is a arc energy sniper from the Festival of the Lost Halloween event. I don't snipe very often in D2 PvP. I'm more of a shotgun guy. I like to kind of just ape and rush down the other team and be a jerk and, seize the opportunity to play aggro when the opportunity does arise. But when I do snipe, there is a short, limited list of snipers that I really trust to get the job done. Mechabre is absolutely one of them. It is really, really good. It feels great to use. It has a 45 zoom, which I think is the number that I maybe prefer the most. There might be an exception to that we'll talk about later, but the Mechabre is just very, very good. The scope is clean. The weapon stats are good. It has access to a lot of stuff that people, really enjoy on a sniper, including the main 2 perks. Anytime you talk about a sniper in PvP, it is 98% guaranteed that one of these 2 perks, or both, will come into the discussion. Those perks being Snapshot and Opening Shot. And not only can Mechabre roll those perks, it can roll them in different columns, meaning that the go-to roll for a lot of people, Snapshot, Opening Shot, which is also my go-to roll. There are other options that you can take advantage of if you want to, things like Adrenaline Junkie or Volt Shot, or maybe Vorpal Weapon if you're trying to take down a roaming super in PvP. I don't really lean into that very much. I feel like just Snap, Opening Shot is really peanut butter and jelly, super hard to beat. It is a classic combo, which has been good in D2 PvP basically forever on a sniper rifle. So I don't know when this video is coming out. Festival of the Lost will probably be over by the time it does come out, but I really hope that those of you who are relatively new to D2 took the time to maybe grind out a Mechabre if you're interested in sniping in PvP. Because again, really, really good. Maybe one of the 3 or 4, can't remember the number of snipers that I actually enjoy bringing into PvP. So hope you have one. Dig through your vault. Hopefully it has the god roll, and go enjoy that sucker. Coming in at number 20, we have Forerunner, which is another Bungie love letter to a game they used to make, Halo. The Forerunner is a recreation of the pistol from Halo Combat Evolved, which was a really absurdly deadly PvP weapon that could just 3-tap people from like 20 miles away. It was goddamn ridiculous. But the version in D2 is significantly watered down, but still damn good. And if you're a new player who really wants to do well at long-range combat, but maybe you haven't had a lot of success with sniping, you should check out Forerunner. Forerunner is very, very good. It does not have that instant kill potential that sniper rifles do in PvP, but it's very, very, very easy to use. It doesn't have as much of a zoom as snipers do, so you're not super pulled in, like it's kind of pulled back. You have like a 20 zoom, and that allows you to land shots and team shoot much easier than before. Again, you're not going to get a kill in one hit. it is going to be, I believe, a 3-tap. But it's a great team shot weapon. If you're trying to learn how to engage people at long range, maybe you haven't gone to the lighthouse before and you're like, I really want to help, do good team shot damage from downtown, but I don't really know how to snipe. Check out Forerunner. Like, all you need to do is maybe land 1 or 2 shots. You might not get the kill, but if your teammate has a pulse rifle or a bow or a scout rifle or whatever, you could get great team shot kills from downtown. And Forerunner is very accurate. It shoots really quickly. It's just reliable. Again, the downside being that you need special ammo in order to kind of make it work. It's very good. I would say that if you're new or haven't tried it yet, it is absolutely worth the try. The exotic catalyst is interesting. I gotta be completely honest and tell you that I almost never use it at all. You drop a grenade, like a Halo Combat Evolved grenade, which are stupidly powerful, but it doesn't really come up for me that much in PvP. I think the main appeal of Forerunner in general is to do good, consistent long-range damage. Not for people who are afraid of sniping, but, people who want to trade in that instant lethality for big-time consistency. That is what Forerunner brings to the table, and it's actually a weapon that I enjoy using a lot on M&K. I originally used it only on controller because I think I played Halo only with controller ever growing up. But when I tried it on M&K, I was shocked at how much I enjoyed it, having started using the weapon with controller. So yeah, give it a whirl, and I hope you enjoy it. Next up on our list, we have Hawkmoon. There's going to be a few hand cannons on the PvP side of today's list, and I cannot make a list of PvP weapons that I really, really, really enjoy using without Hawkmoon. It would be impossible. Hawkmoon is an extremely, extremely fun weapon. I don't know if it's the best quote-unquote hand cannon in PvP. I don't know if anyone would rank it as maybe the best overall, but it is very fun, and in the hands of someone who knows how to use it very well, it can be extremely lethal, very punishing at the top level for accurate players. If you're new, the unique exotic perk is the Paracausal Shot, which is basically the more you land headshots in PvP, you are building up kind of a charge on your Hawkmoon there. And when you power up the Paracausal Shot enough, again, via landing crit shots, then you get down to the final round in the magazine, you activate the magic bullet. And if your charge is strong enough, you have the potential to straight up one-shot kill people in PvP with the Hawkmoon. Hawkmoon will do very well in trials if you are good at playing kind of hit and run guerrilla warfare style combat. You need to make sure that you are really engaging the enemy, peek shooting a lot, turning your tail and disengaging when your health bar gets a little bit low. And if the other team is not aggressive enough to step up and challenge you or make sure that you aren't playing that way, you can smoke them. You've got opportunities where you're just kind of teasing them a little bit, and then, yeah, now you have a full charge Paracausal. You pop out, one guy tries to peek the lane, and you just rip his head off in one bullet, and it's free. It's a free round. You just charge in with your team now, and you outnumber them 3-2, and you destroy them. Or you can bring Hawkmoon into 6v6. I mean, harder to probably get the Paracausal Shot off there. Even though you have more people to shoot, there's more people to shoot you, so you have to be a little bit better about staying alive. But it's just really fun. It's a great weapon. It doesn't have a lot of perk options because it's an exotic. There go my earbuds. Really, your only customizable option is what it brings to the table in column 3. I'd say that maybe I would boil it down to 3 options, which would be Rangefinder, Eye of the Storm, and Opening Shot, probably. Rangefinder and Eye of the Storm, the most consistent across the board. But if you're looking to just troll people with the Paracausal Shot alone, then Opening Shot would probably be your play, because after you have the full charge up of Paracausal, you just need to wait like 3 seconds or whatever it is for Opening Shot to kind of reactivate itself. And now you have a much higher shot at landing the Paracausal bullet on another player in the head, which again is half the fun of using the Hawkmoon. It has a really cool design. I love the caw noise that when you shoot the Paracausal bullet. It's just a wonderful weapon. I really enjoy it. If you're a PvP enjoyer, you're kind of new to the game or, whatever, I would recommend going to Zur and trying to pick it up. I think it's a really fun hand cannon that is worth your time. Absolutely. At number 18, we have the Peace of Mind Pulse Rifle. And I don't use this weapon a lot, but this weapon might be one of the most consistent PvP primaries in the game for me ever since it dropped into D2. I'm not kidding. I think pulse rifles these days, the meta is to rock a hard-hitting, high-impact pulse rifle, which is really good for team shooting from downtown, which I don't deny. But there's something about Peace of Mind. It's really, really goddamn reliable, especially at winning mid-range 1v1 gunfights. I think I enjoy using the weapon more when I play controller. I think it does pretty good on M&K, but again, if I'm playing controller for whatever reason in PvP, it's probably a 90% chance that I will start on Peace of Mind just to kind of warm up and feel out controller if I haven't played controller in a while, and then move on to a different weapon. It is really that easy to pick up with. I feel like if you haven't gone flawless in trials at all yet, maybe you're trying to, and you play on controller or on console, I would maybe start with trying to get some kind of good Peace of Mind. It might be one of the best PvP crafted weapons in the game for a controller player specifically. It does have pretty good weapon options. I do believe that the one I use the most is just straight up moving target perpetual motion, which perpetual motion shines a little bit better on controller due to the overall stability buff. But it's just consistent. It's a laser. I don't really enjoy a lot of rapid fire frame pulse rifles, but Peace of Mind is legit a staple PvP weapon in my mind. It doesn't jump around a lot. Like, it's very stable when you shoot it, despite being a rapid fire frame. And it flinches pretty well, even though it doesn't hit tremendously hard. It's just very consistent. All you have to do, especially now that you have the intrinsic full auto option in the game, which weapons that normally require you to squeeze and mash the trigger a lot really appreciate, like the Peace of Mind. All you have to do, hold down the trigger, be halfway decent at strafing, and you're probably going to get the kill in a 1v1. I'm being dead honest. It's just really, it's a very easy weapon to use effectively in PvP. I haven't gone on console D2 in a while. I play mostly on PC. But again, I can only say this so many times. If you're on console and you haven't gone flawless and you have a decent roll of the Peace of Mind laying around in your vault, pick it up. It's really good. If you want to be crazy, you could try something like Focused Fury. I don't think that is going to really help you in the majority of your games, but the option is there on the table if you want to. But I think most players would probably do best with Elemental Capacitor or Moving Target. Harmony is there too, though. So if you're very good at either maybe shotgunning or fusion rifling people, then that could be for you, because the damage buff given by Harmony is damn good. It's not as good as like something like Kill Clip, which the gun can't get anyway. But 20% for a number of seconds for just getting a kill with, you know, whatever other weapon you might be rocking at the time, that's pretty solid. And a weapon like Peace of Mind can do a lot with an extra 20% damage. Basically, it's so consistent that if you have that 20% extra damage activated, you'd have to choke really hard in order to lose a 1v1 gunfight with Harmony Peace of Mind activated. But again, if you want a very consistent option, perpetual motion moving target is probably my firm recommendation for players looking to try and pick up the Peace of Mind and make it work, which I believe anyone can do. Number 17, we have the Ikelos SMG. And this thing has not been meta, not hard top tier meta for a minute. I think it's been very much outshone by the Immortal, the Adept Immortal. But there's something about the Ikelos. I keep returning to it. At the time of me recording this video, we are deep into Season of the Witch. And at this point, SMGs have gone through a number of nerfs to try and reduce how dominant they are in PvP. And even though they're not unbeatably, unquestionably dominant, they're still fairly good. And among the higher tier options, I would say, is undoubtedly the Ikelos SMG. It is very consistent. There are times, I swear to God, people are going to be like, you're just saying this to create drama or whatever. I'm not. there are times that it feels better to me than my 5 out of 5 God roll Immortal. I'm being completely honest. It's so stable and consistent. There was an issue a long while back, I can't remember how long ago, where Bungie revealed that basically all of the Ikelos weapons had some kind of hidden inherent buff in the frame. Like the weapons were extra stable, I believe it was, which is really funny that it took them a long time to find that out because they had been in the game for a really long time. I swear to God, there's got to be some kind of hidden leftover buff laying around untouched in that weapon frame, because really it shouldn't feel as good as it does. And I swear it feels really, really good. Anyway, if you have a crafted one and you want to do well at mid to short to mid-range combat with a primary weapon in PvP, if you have a crafted Ikelos, go recraft one with as much range as you can handle, and Dynamic Sway Rangefinder. That's kind of the play. Yeah, I know Rangefinder got nerfed not too long ago. It's still really good. Zoom still does very well on SMGs. It makes them feel a little bit better. It's just not kind of, Rangefinder isn't the almighty, no questions asked, goated perk. It might make people think a little bit more like, do I want Rangefinder or do I want Tap the Trigger? I've felt them both out on the Ikelos. I still prefer Rangefinder. Yeah, Dynamic Sway Reduction, a ton of range, and Rangefinder, you slap that on an Ikelos SMG, you bring it into PvP, M&K or Controller. It's going to feel good, I'm telling you. Yeah, it's been outshone by a couple of options, but I will still put it on and make it work. And hey, if you want to go extreme close range combat in PvP, because it is an energy weapon, it can pair with Conditional Finality, the bubble popper. If you go Conditional and Ikelos together, that is a super good mid to close range quarters combat loadout. If you just want to go pure ape, pure aggression, it will work wonders, I guarantee you. Next up at number 16, we have the Round Robin, the first 120 RPM hand cannon on our list for PvP today. The Round Robin is exceptional. My first, I think maybe the only craftable 120 RPM hand cannon in the game, certainly my first. And there was a time when I didn't use 120 RPM hand cannons for a long time in D2, preferring 140 RPMs, which I think the majority of PvP really enjoyed using for a long time. Round Robin got me, it was kind of like my entry, my gateway drug to 120 RPM hand cannons. Very, very, very consistent. I think that the more people I talk to who play PvP, who enjoy 120 RPM hand cannons, play on M&K rather than Controller. I don't know, it's like been true in 90% of the people who I talk to who play PvP. So maybe if you play Controller, you won't enjoy Round Robin as much. But if you play PvP and you're on M&K and you enjoy hand cannons, and maybe you're still in the 140 RPM lane because you know you're an OG player, I like Dire Promise. I can't stay off the classics. Try Round Robin. It's really, really good. And again, craftable. It's difficult to unlock the craftable frame for Round Robin if you didn't do that cheese farm right when Lightfall dropped, which I did. But if you manage to get a crafted one, you can just make a perfect one on paper. The one that I enjoy the most is Keep Away and Opening Shot. Now, I know a lot of people are probably going to argue that it should be Keep Away and Kill Clip instead of Opening Shot, which, you know, fair point. The problem I have with Kill Clip is that last I checked, Kill Clip is not able to 2-tap a Titan or any Guardian in PvP at 10 Resil. You will leave them with just a pinch of health, which is extremely annoying. And Titans are strong in the PvP meta right now, especially in Trials, because the bubble kind of rules Trials, which is very annoying. So you run into a lot of Titans, and many of them barricade spam, meaning that many of them are 10 Resil, meaning that you're not going to get a 2-tap Kill Clip Round Robin headshot as often as you think. So I've been leaning into Opening Shot a little bit more just to make things feel way more consistent. And it does feel very consistent. It's a very accurate 120 RPM hand cannon. Elemental Capacitor would do fine as well. If you're a Strand person and maybe a little bit crazy, you can go with Golden Tricorn. But I think either Elemental Capacitor or Opening Shot would be a very solid option, very, very safe bet for the round robin. Please give it a try. One of my favorite crafted weapons to bring into PvP. Coming in at number 15 on the PvP side, we actually have a change. I had made an original list and I was reviewing the video and my notes and the script, and I actually had a different weapon in here at this slot because, except for maybe the top numbers of each list, the numbers don't really mean that much. Maybe like the top 5 or the top 10, but like everything below that is just kind of, you know, weapons I very much enjoy. And I had a weapon that I had on the list for the PvP side, one of the 25. It was kind of between two. Draft A of the script, I went with one weapon, and then I realized I had made the wrong decision, so we are recording this part over again. I may have left clues in the remainder of the video about what the weapon was, but I'm not going to change them. So if you can figure out what the weapon used to be, good for you. But the new weapon on my list that I realized, you know, was the correct choice of the real weapon that I couldn't live without for PvP, it is Drang, the sidearm Drang. We have other sidearms on the list today. They are more of unique specialist options that perform, you know, they can perform like a regular sidearm, or they can also perform uniquely like Forerunner and 2 others, which I don't think we've gotten to yet. But yes, Drang is a standard high performance sidearm. It is vanilla, but it is damn good vanilla. It is OG original, made at home in the kitchen from scratch vanilla. Drang is just an exceptional weapon. It has been very good in PvP for a long while now. Bungie has tried to rightfully nerf and change Drang for being pretty much too good. When it was back in its heyday, it had extremely high zoom. The zoom changes hadn't taken effect in the sandbox yet, and Drang was just really, 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 really good. And it's been toned down a little bit since then. But even with the changes, I still find that Drang is an exceptional PvP weapon. I mainly use it if and when I'm playing controller, although I have used it on M&K too, and it performs beautifully on M&K. I do think that sidearms benefit a little bit more from the reticle friction given by controller, but works great on M&K too. If you're a PvP player trying to get into things on the console side, and you're maybe over SMGs, or you want to try something a little different at the medium to close range, Drang is great. I really hope you have a crafted one. If you don't, you know, non-crafted Drang, it'll get the job done, but like you really want a crafted Drang if you have good feelings for Drang in PvP like I do. And there's really, for a couple options, a couple weapons on today's PvP and PvE list, there are different quote-unquote god rolls that you could go with, that you could feel good or, you know, whatever about. For Drang, there's really only one build that I really enjoy, and that is max range, Zen moment, and moving target. That is the roll. You could do well with, you know, Eye of the Storm, quick draw. You could do Swashbuckler if you're a big melee player. If you have the Athresis Embrace on the Hunter or something like that. If you just, you know, depending on your playstyle. Incandescent, if you're kind of a hipster, you can make that work in PvP too. But just moving target and Zen moment is my role with max range on the Drang, and that is such a straightforward, borderline impossible to mess up roll. The only way you're going to get clowned is maybe by a really 5 out of 5 immortal roll up close, or like a shotgun. And even against the immortal player, the Drang can hang. Drang can hang in the SMG meta. It is quite good. It's just an exceptional weapon. They can try to hold it down. But they would still need to make a lot of changes to Drang to make me delete it. I have thousands of kills on it in PvP on my tracker. It's just, it's very reliable. Great weapon to pair with a sniper, and I really enjoy it, even though I'm not a big sidearm guy. It's kind of, despite the fact we do have a few sidearms on the list, I'm not a big generic normal sidearm guy, with the exception of Drang. Fantastic weapon. Glad I changed the list to include it. Moving on, we have the Exalted Truth hand cannon. I really, really enjoy this hand cannon in PvP. It's very difficult to pick a favorite 140 RPM hand cannon in D2 because there's just so goddamn many of them to pick from, right? But if I had to really shorten the list down, Exalted Truth would probably be on that list. It's just extremely, extremely consistent. It does have a lot of competition. Again, there's so many goddamn 140 RPM hand cannons, but I have a role that I really enjoy, Rangefinder and Eye of the Storm, which, yeah, a little boring, but hey, this is a list of PvP weapons that I can't live without, and that is a classic staple role for PvP. Rangefinder, pushing out your zoom, which benefits hand cannons nicely, and you have Eye of the Storm, so when you're in a 1v1 duel, your health bar gets low, you get more accurate, you get that tighter accuracy cone, which is terrific to have in a 1v1. It's just a very solid weapon overall. I can't really gush about it too much because there's not too much to say. Right now, there are other primary weapons in the energy department, which I, believe it or not, enjoy using more than Exalted Truth, which we'll get to eventually. But if we ever come back to a hard 140 RPM hand cannon meta, I feel like there are other options that outshine Exalted a little bit, just a little bit right now. Again, we'll get to that later. But it's just so good. I'll always keep it around. If for whatever reason I want to use a 140 RPM hand cannon, it is on the short list. And because it is a featured trials weapon, or has been, I have an adept one. I can customize it a little bit. I can go adept range. I can go adept stability for better flinch resist. I just love having the flexibility of being able to use those mods on my Exalted Truth if I want. It is a very, very reliable PvP primary that I will never delete, no matter what Dado tells me to. Extra note on the Exalted Truth, I'm not sure when it's going away. I think it might be going away soon. Bungie kind of, moving the trials loot along. But you should check to see if you have one in your vault. If you're lucky, you might have one with Perfect Float, which is an extremely good PvP perk that is difficult / annoying to proc in game because you need to be constantly in combat, aka dealing or receiving damage during a 6-second window, kind of back and forth. It's kind of weird. Picture keeping a beach ball or a volleyball in the air back and forth between you and another person for 6 seconds. But when you get the perk activated, you get better incoming flinch resist, which is huge in PvP. I know a number of hand cannons have the ability to roll with Perfect Float, but having a Trials hand cannon with really good base stats and the ability to roll with, adept weapon mods together with Perfect Float, it's a really good combo. I do believe I have one. I think the option in column 4 isn't really terrific, but it remains a fairly solid option if you want to have a primary weapon with reduced incoming flinch, provided you're patient enough to try and get the perk to work. Moving on, we have the Techeun Force Fusion Rifle. To repeat what I said earlier, I don't always fusion rifle in PvP, but when I do, I have a very short list of fusion rifles that I really, truly feel like I can rely on, either for controller or M&K, and I can really rely on the Techeun Force. It is very, very good, very consistent, especially because the weapon is craftable. When the Techeun Force first dropped, I borderline felt that it might have been a big mistake for Bungie to make this weapon craftable because it is really good. Usually when Bungie introduces a craftable weapon into the game, they don't want to automatically give the fusion rifle the quote best perk options because then everyone will only go use those options and not experiment with anything else. And Bungie came pretty close to doing that with the Techeun Force. I think if maybe it had a tap the trigger or firmly planted or something, both perks which have reduced efficiency on fusion rifles because of how OP they were in the past, then it might have been maybe a little bit of a different story. But Techeun has access to both rangefinder and under pressure as a craftable fusion rifle, which is very, very good. You have other options too, for sure. You have threat detector, you have controlled bursts. I don't really enjoy backup plan, but it is there if you want it. High impact reserves, which is a very reliable fusion rifle perk. And of course you have kickstart too, which is quite good. But I like just going with under pressure rangefinder on Techeun. It's an adaptive frame, so I don't really worry too much about needing a better, faster charge time, which you could get from something like kickstart. I think the charge time is fine. And with those perks, you're pretty much good to go right out of the gate. Under pressure, I believe, has had reduced efficiency on fusion rifles, again, for being a very good perk on fusions in general. Basically, when you spawn in PvP, you are able to take advantage of under pressure right away, because in order for the perk to turn on, you have to be in the bottom half of the mag. And when you spawn into PvP, you should only have 2 shots in your fusion rifle, as is tradition with a special weapon. And bam, you're good to go. The perk is already on right out the gate. So it's very efficient, very effective. And if you're looking for maybe a starter fusion rifle, if you would like to experiment with fusion rifles in the safety of your own home, Techeun Force is a really good starting point if you have the pattern unlocked, but for whatever reason have not crafted one yet. Go try it out. Dangerously efficient in PvP. Next in PvP, we have the Cryosthesia. Cryosthesia. I love saying that name. I have no idea why. Yeah, I'm mainly a hand cannon pulse rifle guy. Hand cannon pulse rifle SMG guy in PvP. Daring today, aren't we, Fallout? Yes. But there are some sidearms that I do enjoy. Most of them are exotic. Cryosthesia is definitely one of them. The utility it provides is insane. If you are new and have no idea what I'm talking about, it kind of has a unique version of, it's like kill clip, but way more trolly and way more fun. Basically, after you get a kill, you reload your sidearm, and now you have the ability to do a charge up shot where that charge up shot where if it hits an enemy directly, they will freeze. They will just straight up be frozen. And yes, that does work in PvP. If you're new, again, you might be thinking, wow, that sounds ridiculously overpowered. It can feel that way sometimes, but again, we are talking about a sidearm. If it were a hand cannon, especially like a 120 RPM hand cannon, which can tag people cross map very easily, yeah, that would be goddamn crazy. But it's a sidearm, so it has limited range, limited effective engagement window. You're only really going to be using it at short to close range, and that can be difficult right now because SMGs are still very good. You have a ton of conditional finalities running around in trials, so Cryosthesia you have to be very careful with. It's a special, it's not a special, it's a primary weapon living in the land of close range special weapons and SMGs. Not a great time to be alive. But when you get the weapon to work, it's really very dangerous. People will be mad at you, guaranteed. You can use the weapon to kind of counter people who are maybe overly confident with shotgun or SMG pushing. And the base stats on Cryosthesia are good. It has very high aim assist. It's got great range. It's a good, sticky feeling sidearm on controller. And I have used it on M&K a ton. I mean, you don't get the reticle friction on M&K, which really does benefit the feel of the weapon. I would say probably stronger on controller overall. But very reliable, very deadly. And if you put in a little bit of practice with it, you would be amazed at the things that you can accomplish in PvP. Team shooting becomes 10 times easier when you have someone trying to peek shoot. Bam, you've frozen them and now your teammate just rips their head off. You have someone charging at your team with a roaming super. Bam, you freeze them. They're dumbfounded. They have no idea what just happened. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the utility on Cryosthesia is absolutely there. And I do think that a lot of people sleep on the gun. I get why people don't use it, again, because hand cannons are extremely good and you have to use it close to medium range where it does get dicked down a lot by a lot of things. But for people who put in the work, who put in the practice and figure out the kind of ins and outs of the weapons, they're going to really enjoy using it. Okay, we've talked about one exotic sidearm, so let's talk about the other one that I like a little bit more. Devil's Ruin. This is a phenomenal, very fun PvP weapon that I think is just hilarious. I think that if I had to make a list of my top 5 favorite exotics in the game, Devil's Ruin would be on that list. It is really enjoyable. When I stream and I put together a build that features the Devil's Ruin, it is almost guaranteed that no matter, I've been streaming for years, people will come into chat and they'll be like, what the fuck weapon is he using? I was like, it's the Devil's Ruin. A lot of newer players straight up don't know that it exists or are unfamiliar with the alternate firing mode, which is how I use the weapon maybe 80% of the time. Sometimes there are situations where, the enemy is weak within range and you just want to quickly tap the trigger as quickly as you can to just put them down. But for the most part, I will use the alternate fire, which you hold down the trigger and you charge up a laser shot, which has great range that takes a lot of people off guard. Yeah, the charge time does take a while. And yeah, I don't like fusion rifles because they have a long charge time. High impact fusion rifles, I don't use them because they have a high charge time. But what makes the Devil's Ruin different is that a fusion rifle, you spend a long time to hold down the trigger and charge up, and then boom, it's all gone in just in the blink of an eye. So if you don't connect with all your bolts, the other person will kind of take advantage of that and ape you down, right? But the Devil's Ruin, even though it does take a long time to charge up, when you begin firing, the beam is continuous. It goes for over a full second. So the other player sometimes will think that your beam is, quote, over and try to challenge you and pop out, and they'll pop out into the beam, which is still going, and they will be killed. It catches a lot of people off guard. I will very frequently just charge up and pre-fire corners that I know people are near or hiding behind, and they will literally walk into the beam. I'm telling you, people very often forget how to fight someone abusing the Devil's Ruin. And it's not just like, oh, bot lobbies. No, I'm telling you, it will catch people off guard. And if you really want to take advantage of the Devil's Ruin, please maximize your reload time. I almost never care about upping my reload time in PvP, unless maybe I'm using a 120 RPM hand cannon with completely garbage reload time, because that can be very painful. But Devil's Ruin, if you just, if you're a Warlock, a Phidian, if you're a Hunter, Mechaneer's Trick Sleeves, double, triple solar reload on your Gauntlet, I'm telling you, it will be hilarious, because the only real downside is that after charging the laser, you have to do your little reload thing. And if you just reload the gun lightning quick, you can just be beaming people back to back to back to back, and they will freak out. They will not have any idea how to fight back. You, of course, can. It's not an unbeatable strategy, but it is just so satisfying to put on max reload Devil's Ruin and just go into PvP and just beam spam and watch people freak out. Please give it a whirl especially if you're new and you're like, oh, sidearms are bad. Yeah, a lot of them are, but just go use Devil's Ruin. I promise you will have a great time. Coming in at number 10, we have the Occluded Finality Sniper Rifle. This is a really odd weapon, but people very much agree that it is kind of special and unique. I love this weapon. Again, I don't snipe very often, but when I do, there is a short list of snipers that I will go to, and Occluded Finality is one of my go-tos. If I'm on controller, which again is rare, and I want to play long-range combat, I will go directly to Occluded Finality. I think I mentioned at the beginning of the video with the Mechabre sniper that I think 45 zoom is kind of my favorite zoom for snipers. People kind of go back and forth between either 45 or 40 zoom. Those are usually the two most common zoom values. Occluded Finality is kind of an odd duck. It has a 52 zoom, which is a very random, weird number. It's very focused in, and it's like people call it the telescope. Like, it's just a very weird number. And when I first heard that the sniper had 52 zoom, I kind of wrote it off immediately. I was like, well, this is trash. Like, I don't want to be like looking in at the blackheads on the other dude's face, right? Like, I want to have a little bit of a pulled back zoom. I don't want to be so deep on the guy. But I tried Occluded Finality, and it's really clean. I don't know what it is. And the certain perk combination that I got early on, which I fell in love with, was Iron Reach and Snapshot. I mean, Snapshot, of course, everybody knows that's a go-to perk. But Iron Reach, my Occluded Finality has 100 range. And I'm telling you, I don't really know what is going on under the hood with that gun. But there's something, I've tried different Occluded Finalities with not 100 range, and they don't feel as good. There's something special going on with that gun that has hit 100 range. Granted, my stability is in the toilet. I think it's like 10 or 9 or something like that. It is very low on my Occluded Finality, meaning when I get shot, I get flinched to the moon, baby, to the goddamn moon. But there's something really special about that weapon. When Iron Banner comes back, I know Iron Banner can be kind of like a slog and a pain and, the worst thing ever. But if Occluded Finality is on the table in some way for you to acquire, try to get a good Occluded Finality roll, especially if you play on controller. I still use it on M&K, but I think for M&K snipers, there are other weapons that I prefer more, like the Mechabre and stuff. But it's just a very unique PvP weapon that I really thought that I would not like, and I very much enjoy it. And I think that says something about it right there. If you want to go for the snapshot opening shot roll, that's fine. That's a great roll. It's like the go-to peanut butter and jelly, bread and butter roll of snipers in PvP. But I'm telling you, there's something going on there with the 100 range. I don't know what it is, but I'll figure it out one day. But yeah, a sniper for PvP that I very much recommend. Moving on to number 9, and I think the final sniper rifle on my PvP list today, we have the Defiance of Yasmin, which is a excellent, clean sniper. Probably my number one most favorite sniper that I enjoy using in PvP, which again is a very short list. I think we only had 3. Defiance of Yasmin is obtainable via the King's Fall raid, and it is a craftable weapon if you manage to completely unlock the pattern by repeatedly completing King's Fall raid and just getting the deep sight drops until you get the pattern. Yeah, Defiance of Yasmin is good. It does have a 40 zoom, and I think I mentioned my favorite, most consistent zoom being 45. But there's just something about Yasmin. It's really clean and consistent, and I just like it a ton. It's got good stats across the board. The scope is neat, and like there's something, it just clicks with me. I'm more of a shotgunner in PvP than I am a sniper, but that's kind of how you know that you found the right weapon of that archetype for you when you put it on and it just kind of clicks immediately. You just feel very good. You're popping headshots. You know, it doesn't matter. Controller, M&K. I think I started using this weapon on controller and then transitioned to M&K for PvP, and I was like, well, there's no way that I'm going to still know how to snipe after changing inputs, right? I do pretty okay with the Defiance of Yasmin, despite not claiming to be a sniper at all. It's pretty good. I believe my role is, shocker, snapshot opening shot. Daring today, aren't we? But you do have other options like you got moving targets. You've got no distractions, which is a good perk, but I don't like hard scoping for that long. I kind of like moving quickly and, you know, quick scoping in on a lane and then, okay, just fuck off, move to a different lane, yada, yada. And no distractions does require 1 full second of ADS to activate the flinch resist, which doesn't seem like a long time, but in PvP, it can be a long time. So I go with the classic snapshot opening shot. And it really do get the job done. Some people like using slick draw if you're a blinter, but I mean, Bungie is actively trying to make that less of a thing now because they've reduced the overall body shot damage of snipers not too long ago. Blinting, if you don't know, is intentionally or accidentally hitting the body of an enemy guardian in PvP, then swapping to a hand cannon or whatever your primary of choice might be, and finishing them off quickly with a follow-up headshot. And Bungie wants snipers to kind of be in more of the role, I believe, of a high risk, high reward, all or nothing. You hit him in the head. It's a big payoff, but you have to be accurate and actually aim for the head. I think that is what they're kind of going for with that reduction in the body shot damage. So people can use slick draw to be a better blinter. I'm kind of not about that life, but if you are, you do you. It's craftable. You craft whatever you want. I'm going with snapshot opening shot and calling it a day. I love that sniper. Coming in at number 8, we have the Found Verdict, the Time Lost Found Verdict shotgun. Doesn't have to be time lost because I use Quick Access Sling as my mod. Don't use any of the mods, but mine happens to be time lost, so why not mention that? Maybe the most controversial thing that I'm going to have on my list of PvP weapons that I can't live without is that this is my highest rated, I think, legendary shotgun. I know for a fact, no, there's one more, but the shotgun list does not include the Matador 64, and a lot of people have probably rage quit out of the video right now or are typing an angry comment below. But again, to reiterate what I said at the beginning of the video, this is not my list of, quote, the best weapons or most meta weapons in PvP. This is my list of personal favorite weapons. And despite the fact that I know how good the Matador is in PvP, believe me, I know, I've never gotten a good enough roll to bring into PvP. And I've farmed it a lot, but I have a halfway decent Found Verdict roll. Also not perfect, to my great shame. But I just kind of went, it's good enough. And I've gone flawless with this gun so many times, I've lost count. It's a very reliable shotgun that I used for a long time in PvP. It's still, I'm never going to break it down. It is not perfect. It's actually to the point where if I got a perfect 5 out of 5, I'm not sure if I would break down the original one, because like I'd feel bad. I want to, if it were a stadium, if my streaming room were like a stadium, its number would be hanging up on a jersey on the wall behind me. It's really a weapon that I've been using in PvP for so long. I have surplus opening shot. In a perfect world, it would have threat detector opening shot like a Matador, but unfortunately the Found Verdict cannot roll threat detector, which is why people prefer the Matador. But surplus is pretty good. It'll buff the handling. It'll make the weapon feel more snappy. It will punish you a little bit more if you are an ability spammer, which is why people like the reliability of threat detector. But again, I've had bad Matador RNG. Despite all my countless hours of farming, I have not gotten a stellar Matador roll, which really pains me in the dick, like you have no idea. But yeah, so Found Verdict is there to comfort me. It does. My Found Verdict does have a reload masterwork, which is the eternal thorn in my paw. But despite the fact that it is not perfect, it is damn good. It is a really reliable shotgun that I just very much enjoy using in PvP. If you're new, I do believe the Found Verdict is free to acquire via the Vault of Glass raid. So if you're, you could probably just get a Fellwinter's Lie at the tower. If you're new, that's probably the much easier option. But if you want to go the extra mile and go for the Found Verdict, I do vouch for it. It's a very fun weapon that I've enjoyed using for a long time. And again, the number would be hanging up on a jersey if I could. I do enjoy it. Not as good as the Matador. But again, this is not most meta weapons. These are my favorite weapons. So salute to the time lost Found Verdict. Next on my list, we have kind of a weird one. I'm including a power weapon in my PvP weapons list that I can't live without. And that would be the Battue, the Battue grenade launcher, which is basically my go-to power weapon across the board in PvP, or has been for a long time. Until recently, I have a cataphract grenade launcher with an extremely similar role, but so similar to the point where I'm probably just going to keep using my Battue. I really do respect people who go into PvP with things like eager edge swords because they want to, the movement tech. Oh, I'm a strand hunter. Oh, I'm a grapple above you. Oh, eager edge this way. Oh, ensnaring slam that way. Look at me. I watch Walla. Shout out to Walla. Love that guy. But, there's, sometimes you want to have fun in PvP with your eager edge swording. Totally get that. You want to break ankles. You want to make Twitter clips. That's fine. You do you. You live your best life. But when I'm really just kind of no nonsense, pick up the power ammo, I just want to get kills, Battue all the way. It's I have one with proximity grenades, which is kind of, in my opinion, the play in PvP, because there's nothing more annoying than firing a grenade at another guy and missing by that much, and the grenade doesn't get a full contact, and it just kind of goes right by them, and they kill you. You want proximity to guarantee the damage on the other guy. And the bad thing about proximity is that it shortens the blast radius by a lot, which it should, because it's a really good perk. But my Battue has basically maximum blast radius. Every category that I have on my Battue, luckily, I got full blast radius. So even with the proximity grenade perk, it's still like a 50-something blast radius, which is very high. So I just kind of got into the habit of slapping that onto my power weapon. And very frequently, even though I'm not the kind of guy like, oh, power, let me go get power. I prefer hand cannon primary weapon play a lot. But, on the situations when I do pick up power, it is just such an easy way to get multi-kills. Not a guaranteed triple kill every time, but super easy to get low effort power weapon kills. And I've been using it. It's been my go-to staple power weapon for PvP for a long time. So again, If I had to have jerseys hanging up, Blast Battue would be up there out of respect, even though it is a power weapon. Moving on, we come to No Time to Explain. This is a really, really reliable primary weapon that I will bring into trials 90% of the time. If there is a big, long map like Midtown or something like that, almost a guarantee. I may not use it, but I will always bring it to have the option if I want to. No Time to Explain, not too long ago, got a sizable nerf by Bungie because it really was just kind of that weapon that was driving everybody crazy at mid to long range in PvP. Super, super good. The times where I do get on console, which is very rare these days, I don't see it a lot. I do feel very strongly that it is a weapon that succeeds far more on mouse and keyboard than it does on controller. If you want to give it a try on controller, there's nothing wrong with it. I just think that it is super good on mouse and keyboard. It's just, you know, a lot of controller players they don't lean on it, but they're very used to having that reticle friction from controller. But the mouse and keyboard, you know, we don't get that. So it's just more easy to, you know, use efficiently at longer ranges because you're not reliant on that reticle friction with M&K. So No Time to Explain is just damn good. It hit team shots so well, being a high impact frame pulse rifle. It's just got good base stats, solid. It does have kind of a wonky, you know, kick recoil direction, but you kind of make peace with that just because it's so efficient. And when you're peak shooting a lot and you're landing a lot of crit shots, the weapon rewards you for just being accurate in general in the form of the Bullet Buddy, which will kind of spawn over your shoulder when you charge it all the way up to ×10. And it's just extra team shooting for free. It's really, really good. If you consider yourself a decent M&K player and you're trying to maybe find a reliable weapon, a reliable team shot weapon that can get you far in trials or comp or whatever, No Time to Explain is pretty good. It's always going to be a staple. They would have to really bury it very, very hard for me to not enjoy that weapon as much as I do. So I'd really go to bat for it. It is a phenomenal PvP primary, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. Hey, did you think I was done talking about sniper rifles? Well, get lied to, idiot, because number 5 is the Beloved. And after thinking about it a little bit more, I think it is the most used, most loved sniper, pun not intended, goddammit, by me in PvP. Realizing now I've been very inconsistent about talking about sniper zoom, because I think I mentioned that my favorite zoom was 45. Maybe that was a lie, because I went over my notes about how much I fucking love the Beloved sniper. Yeah, it's 40 zoom. So it is really, really good. Again, it is craftable. A lot of my favorite weapons are craftable, provided they have the right perks on them. There's no bigger shame than getting a crafted weapon from Bungie and you look at the perks available and they're all just dog shit. Like, just, it's a horrible, horrible, horrible feeling. And Beloved has been in my inventory for a while. I think it probably has the most kills on it of any of my sniper PvP trackers. It's so good. I don't snipe very often, despite the fact that I've said that a lot in this video, and numerous, I think we've had more snipers on my PvP list than shotguns, which is kind of funny. But I do like it a lot. It is very, very good. I might even love it more than the Mechabre, which a lot of people would probably be like, yeah, that makes sense. But I have friends like Cool Guy who would be like, you're a goddamn heathen, because I think he thinks the Mechabre is maybe the #1 sniper. But I just love Beloved too much. It is really good. I love my role. It is shockingly, or maybe unshockingly, the only sniper I have that is not snapshot opening shot. Mine is actually snapshot moving target, which is not wildly different from, you know, snapshot opening shot, but it is a rock solid roll that will not do you wrong in PvP. It just got just the right amount of aim assist because it's got that 40 zoom. It's pretty pulled back, so you can see a lot of enemies and of what is going on in the battle via your HUD. It's not super zoomed in like the Occluded Finality, even though I strangely Love that gun despite the 52 zoom. Scope is very clean. It is just a very clean, no nonsense sniper rifle, and it's very generous. Like, again, with the good aim assist, the snapshot, and the moving target, it's it's a little bit of a training wheels type situation. I feel like if I used a sniper with worse stats, then naturally I'd be whiffing a lot more. So the guiding hand of the Beloved, just moving you to the head, is just so appreciated by people like me. It's a very good sniper rifle. I think a lot of newer players might be sad that they don't have it, because if they eventually get it, they're going to be like, oh yeah, this is cracked. Like, they're going to figure out right away that it feels really, really good. Like, I can't believe I've been sniping without this. But you got to be careful that with a gun as good as the Beloved, if you try to swap to a different sniper, you're going to get spoiled. Like, the magic guiding hand of the Beloved, it's not going to be there on other snipers. So be careful. You've been warned. You may become addicted to Beloved sniping. But yeah, probably my favorite sniper rifle overall. It's a very close call between Defiance of Yasmin and Beloved. I think I'm gonna give it to Beloved. Coming in at number 4, which a lot of people are going to laugh at, but that is fine, is Thorn. I love Thorn. I know, it's ridiculous. How could you have Thorn here instead of something way stronger like Palindrome? I know I had Exalted Truth on my PvP weapon list and not Palindrome. Shocker, right? Controversy. Call me an idiot in the comment section. Thanks for the free engagement. Haha, get wrecked. Kidding, kind of. Thorn is one of my favorite exotics ever. I love the design. I love the feel. Admittedly, it is not as strong as other 140 RPM hand cannons. Again, you put it up against the Truth, you put it up against the Palindrome, it's probably going to get outplayed. Hell, you put it up against the Ice Luna, the Spare Rations, it's probably going to get outplayed. But it is good. I think when I really started tweaking my M&K settings for the first time, effing around with ADS sensitivity, Thorn was the first hand cannon that I swapped to that I was like, this actually feels really good. Like, Thorn was kind of my entry level 140 RPM hand cannon that kind of got me used to the consistency and the pacing and, you know, the accuracy and yada yada. It's a very accurate feeling hand cannon. It's very difficult to describe feeling, but I love the lore behind Thorn. I love the visual design behind Thorn, like the cool, badass, ooh, hive, sick magic. Yeah, it's just, I know, it's kind of like edgy, hot topic vibes for a hand cannon, but whatever. I really enjoy it. When I went to Guardian Con and people had me sign and autograph their you know, graphic books from Bungie that had every exotic in the game, that I signed by Thorn almost every time. It's a gun that I really enjoy, and I'm really excited because we're still in season 22 at the time of me recording today's video, but in season 23, we are getting a exotic Thorn Catalyst. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I'm borderline worried that I'm going to become a Thorn hipster. I think that the Catalyst might be good to the point where everyone is going to pick up and use the gun a lot. And then people are going to complain, and I'm going to use Thorn. They're like, oh, you goddamn sheep using Thorn. I'll be like, no, I used it before. But whatever. It's a good weapon. And when you shoot people, even though it doesn't perform as beautifully as other 140 RPM God Roll hand cannons, it has fun utility. It's got that really fun utility factor where you shoot somebody, and now they're burning. They got that damage over time. They can't really recover as quickly from the gunfight. You're kind of harassing them a little bit. Not as bad as something as like Le Monarch, which is outrageous, but yeah, the fun utility of kind of damaging the enemy's recovery, you know, making them think about, should I recover, making them take longer to get their health back. I really enjoy that. And when you get the little Devour Soul thing to activate, and, you know, you get harder hitting rounds, you know, more efficiently. Can't wait for that exotic catalyst. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you're a new player, get Thorn now. It's going to be hot in season 23. At number 3, we have the Imperial Decree shotgun. As I mentioned, I am a shotgunner far more than I am a sniper, far more than I am a fusion rifler. I really like shotguns. They're very straightforward. If you're a new player trying to get into PvP, shotgunning is the way. The only real thing you need to kind of worry about learning shotgunning, which is a funny thing to say, learning shotgunning. Oh, like what's to learn? You point and click. you have to kind of know when to challenge and when not to challenge. It's very easy to find, you know, new players making mistakes because like, oh, they just get super thirsty and they run in like, shotgun, and they just get blown away, right? You have to pick your battles and know when to charge. But a very good starting tool would be the Imperial Decree. It's a craftable weapon, and it is an aggressive frame shotgun, which is currently my favorite legendary frame to bring into PvP. It's extremely good. There's another shotgun that I like using even more than this that I would be amazed if you haven't predicted is on the list right now. It's coming up. But if that weapon were ever to get nerfed, knock on wood, then Imperial Decree is just waiting in the wings to swoop in and take its place because it is goddamn efficient. You have Threat Detector in column 3, which is beautiful for a shotgun because it works anytime an enemy is within 15 meters of you, which is basically going to be every time that you use a shotgun in PvP on another person. And that power will go up if there are 2 people within 15 meters to a noticeable degree. And you have Opening Shot in column 4. Opening Shot, a perk so good on shotguns in PvP, I borderline will not use a shotgun if it doesn't have Opening Shot, because yes, it feels that good. Yeah, I remember one weekend I was like, oh man, you know, the Astral Horizon shotgun is back in Trials. Let's try to get a god roll. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, Imperial Decree is literally craftable. So I instead spent that weekend getting my crafted Imperial Decree, didn't touch Trials, and so much better off. It's just such a damn good weapon. Probably one of the dirtiest. I know people go directly to Matador when they think of a legendary shotgun. Imperial Decree is so good. It is just criminal. I love it to death. Yeah, very good shotgun. Coming in at number 2, oh Lord, who didn't see this coming? Conditional Finality. Conditional Finality, maybe one of the best raid exotics in the history of the game. It is just damn powerful in PvP. Damn powerful. I don't know who at Bungie created that gun. I wonder if they knew that they were creating a monster. Conditional Finality, at the time of me recording today's video, is probably, I would say, most consistently the #1 most used weapon in Trials across the board, and for good reason. So 1, even though it lacks access to Opening Shot, it has kill range consistent with the best other top-rated shotguns in PvP, including Matador, the Found Verdict, and including Imperial Decree. It can one-hit kill at basically the same ranges, give or take a little bit of pellet RNG, right? Second, actually, let's say 3 reasons. Second reason, the handling on Conditional Finality. Good Lord, it is just so good. 95 handling on a shotgun with no surplus, with no threat detector, with nothing. It's base kit. 95 handling is just absurd. And then the third factor is the utility factor. Currently, right now in PvP, in Trials, Bubble Titans and Radiant Warlock did I say Warlock? Radiant Well Warlocks, I'm losing my mind, are dominating the landscape in Trials at the current time because Trials is zone Trials. So tier 5 supers like Bubble, like Well are going to charge very quickly. Players are going to beeline right to the zone and just bam, drop their bubble round. Put your feet up and you won the round, right? If they have nothing to challenge you with, it's a free round win. Conditional Finality is there, and it's one of the only things keeping Bubble Titans and Radiant Well Warlocks in check in Trials. Without Conditional Finality, the landscape would be ridiculous. It would be like the viability of Bubble Titans, which is already very high, would go much higher because you can literally walk into a bubble with Conditional Finality and nothing else and immediately shut them down and prevent them from putting their feet up and winning the round. The weapon is a godsend for Trials. It is just that good of a gun. It is, I am either out of my mind, I've lost a bet, or I'm drunk if I go into Trials and you see me not with Conditional Finality in my menu. There's a 95% chance I'll be holding it in my hands, but if it's not at least in my character inventory, lost a bet, out of my mind, drunk. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Now, my number one most used, most loved, whatever you want to call it, favorite PvP weapon that I truly cannot live without, the Igneous Hammer. If you frequent any of my streams on Twitch, you know how much I love my Igneous Hammer. It is my favorite primary weapon to use in PvP by a mile in any game type. In Checkmate, of course, because 120 RPM hand cannons are very good in Checkmate. Regular control, of course. Trials, yeah, it's really good. It's a 120 RPM hand cannon, which not a lot of people, I mean, people on M&K, for the most part, enjoy 120 RPM hand cannons a lot. I talk to a lot of controller people who don't really enjoy 120 RPM hand cannons as much. It's totally fine. Weapons feel a little bit different depending on your input method, but I love my Igneous Hammer. Favorite weapon to use on mouse and keyboard by a mile. And as I mentioned with the beloved sniper, I've kind of put myself maybe into a bad situation with Igneous Hammer because it feels so good that when I swap to another hand cannon, I feel naked. I've been a little bit spoiled. It's just between the base stats, the aim assists, the perks, the everything, I feel like I'm shooting cantaloupe. Like the bullets are cantaloupes that come out of my Igneous Hammer. It's so consistent to get headshots, even from crazy far ranges with the Igneous Hammer. Like you're shooting bowling balls. And when I swap to a different hand cannon, it takes me a minute. I have to readjust because it's so forgiving. It's so good. I have multiple Igneous Hammer rolls. I think the one that I use most consistently is I would never shard this weapon even for $1,000, is my god roll of Corkscrew, Ricochet, Keep Away, Moving Target, Range Masterwork. I goddamn love that hand cannon. It is just so good. Keep Away is a perfect perk for a 120 RPM hand cannon, borderline pushing it into like scout rifle territory. And of course, a number one feature of the Igneous Hammer, which is not stated anywhere on the weapon, is that it can be paired with Conditional Finality because it is an energy weapon. So it is the perfect pairing. If I'm going maximum tryhard sweat mode, I will go into PvP or trials with Igneous Hammer, Conditional Finality, peanut butter, and goddamn jelly. It's a beautiful weapon. I don't have enough kind things to say about it. I'm sure eventually Bungie may tone it down. I don't want them to. I would be shocked if maybe 120 RPM hand cannons will eventually get touched on the whole. But I love Igneous Hammer. I think I have close to a perfect roll. I may try to get another roll with small bore instead of my current roll, which again, Corkscrew and Fluted, both of which are great barrel perks for the gun. I would like to get the same roll with small bore just for variety, but number one most used PvP weapon that I cannot live without. Okay, moving on to PvE, my number 25 weapon is the Trinity Ghoul, which is a really fun ad clear weapon even to this day. I think a lot of people kind of didn't really care about the Trinity Ghoul too much until they got the exotic catalyst, which really kind of makes the weapon exceptional, in my opinion. A lot of exotic catalysts are just kind of ho-hum. Trinity Ghoul exotic catalyst is really good. So the exotic perk on the Trinity Ghoul is Lightning Rod, which is after you get a precision kill, then your next arrow burst will have chain lightning. So basically you get a headshot, now you power up the arrow, your next arrow, and you fire it even at the ground, and then like chain lightning across the board. Everybody gets zapped. Very fun. But the exotic catalyst makes it so that any arc final blow at all will activate Lightning Rod. So really, you only need to get one headshot arrow to trigger Lightning Rod, and then as long as you are getting kills with the chain lightning capabilities of Trinity Ghoul, you will re-proc Lightning Rod over and over. So it is a really consistent, very good ad clear weapon. If you're a new player, I've said it like a million times in this video, if you're a new player, but you want to kind of do decent in a Grandmaster Nightfall, especially if there's like an arc surge where you're doing more damage with, your arc weapon, Trinity Ghoul is a good pick. It's going to hit very hard. You can kind of be safe by primary plinking from far away at the back of the map. And yeah, your team will probably appreciate you just doing your damnedest while staying out of trouble and being pretty damn goated at ad clear. It's a weapon I very strongly recommend. PvP, not so much. Not so much, but PvE, yes. Great weapon for sure. Next up, we have the Falling Guillotine, which I know a lot of people are going to go, boo, Bequest is better. Yeah, I know. But like, again, not a video of the most meta weapons in the game, but a list of my favorite weapons in the game. So Falling Guillotine has been with me for a very, very long time in the PvE side. It's fun. I mean, it does take a lot of, you know, ribbing and poking and making fun of from other swords, which are more fun to use, either because they dish out slightly better damage or because they are, you know, eager edging all over the map. But, you know, the Falling Guillotine is pretty damn reliable. I've used it on Crota in situations where maybe I'm the guy with like a Lumina hand cannon trying to dish out the 35% buff, and that way I'm not able to use the Lament, which does significantly more damage. The Falling Guillotine is just forehead easy. Yeah, Lament is the better damage option for sure. No argument, but Falling Guillotine is legendary, lets me use other exotics if I want to in my loadout for whatever reason. And yeah, dummy easy. I got that old god roll, Whirlwind and Relentless together, and you just spam, spin to win. It's a staple. I know it's no longer like the top sword dog or whatever, but I got a soft spot in my heart for it. It's a fun weapon. It's been with me for a long time, and I appreciate the years of service that it's given me. Next up, we have the Cataclysmic Linear Fusion Rifle, and this bad boy has also been with me for a fair amount of time. Not nearly as long as the Falling Guillotine, but I got lucky. It's a craftable weapon, and I know that most people wanted to do the raid until they got the pattern unlocked so they could craft the god roll. I got lucky and just got the god roll to drop. And this weapon was basically the first weapon to turn me on to the power, it's a poor phrase, turn me on to the power of Bait and Switch, which is a super meta PvE damage dealing perk. It is 35% extra damage for 10 seconds, which is so much. I don't want Bungie to ever nerf it, but it's getting to the point where Bait and Switch is almost becoming what Vorpal Weapon used to be back in the day, which is a perk that is almost the no-thought go-to option if you're looking for a power weapon to deal extra damage with. That used to be Vorpal Weapon until Bungie changed the amount of damage it did per power, special, or primary weapon tier. Yeah, it's very, very good. I don't want Bungie to nerf it, but they probably will. But until they do, I'm going to continue to use my Cataclysmic, which I love using in combination with Wither Horde and an SMG, which is great for Bait and Switch. You know, just fire a Wither Horde. Oh, they take it in the gut. Now they're taking that tick damage. You tickle them with the SMG, take out your Cataclysmic, bam. Now you got Bait and Switch, and you've got, what is it, 4th times the charm Bait and Switch. Just bam, 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 and you're getting ammo back in the mag. You're hitting super hard. It is just a fantastic PvE weapon that I've used to shred many a boss. And again, I do think I got it as my first drop from the VOW raid. Not the first drop in the raid, but when I got the Cataclysmic, my first ever drop was the Bait and Switch, which is incredible. So it's been a very special weapon, both in memories from the raid and in terms of dealing damn good damage to bosses in PvE, and I like it a lot. Moving on, we have Fatebringer, which is a very classic ad clear weapon in the land of Destiny, which I've been a fan of for a while. Fatebringer is kind of a go-to option, and of course, I'm going to take the boring, basic pick and say that my go-to role for PvE is going to be Firefly, because it's just so good at what it brings to the table. You shoot an enemy in the head, boom, you make an explosion for a little extra spicy ad clear in that area, and on top of that, you pimp out your reload speed, so bam, explosion, reload lightning quick, and you're ready to go for more ad clear. It's just a go-to, and I mean, in recent years, my primary weapon choice for PvE has kind of gradually drifted towards SMG usage, but there's still always going to be a spot in my heart for Fatebringer. Actually, one of the rare weapons that excels in both PvE and PvP. I didn't have it on my list of PvP weapons I can't live without because, again, hand cannons have so much goddamn competition. It is crazy. But if you have a good Fatebringer, it can do very well in both PvE and PvP. It's a very special weapon, and I like mine very much. And speaking of weapons that are on the list in both PvE and PvP, or could be anyway, we have one that actually is for me. Conditional Finality. It was my number 2 most used PvP weapon that I, quote, can live without. It is on my list of PvE weapons as well. It is really, really good at hitting boss enemies, or mini-boss enemies, excuse me. Anything for a major spec, like champions. Champions are actually affected by major specs, not boss spec. It's a very hard-hitting champion weapon. You can just trash champions with Conditional Finality. And because of the explosion factor, it can help disrupt unstoppable champions, which is excellent. It's just a very good, hard-hitting, close-range combat weapon that you can use to completely shred a bunch of otherwise very big, beefy enemies in difficult endgame PvE content. On the day 1 Crota raid, I brought Conditional Finality to the Ir Yut encounter when we were going into the towers to whittle down the health of the wizards on challenge mode, and Conditional Finality was hitting them extremely hard. It allowed me to, bring them down very quickly so I could rejoin my team during damage phase on Ir Yut. It's just a very good, hard-hitting raid weapon. It's just seriously one of the best weapons Bungie has ever made across the board as a raid exotic for both PvE and PvP. Next up, we have the Tractor Cannon, which I think is going to be a staple in most people's lists in their mind if they were to make one for 50 weapons that they enjoy for PvE and PvP. Tractor Cannon is borderline mandatory for a lot of activities in D2. It is a debuff weapon, making it essential if you're trying to squeeze every extra little bit of damage that you possibly can out of a big boss target, depending on the boss fight and what activity you're doing. But it is a very strong debuff. It is 30%. It is double efficient as the Divinity. It doesn't have the utility that Divinity has by putting a big blue can't miss cage around the enemy, which is quite nice. But the Tractor Cannon 30% debuff for a number of seconds is damn good. You're going to be hitting that target way, way harder than you ever did before. It's sort of become over the years, just a mandatory weapon to bring to especially a day 1 raid, because we don't know what you're going to be dealing with, or, a brand new dungeon or something like that. It's a super terrific, goddamn excellent PvE weapon, a big staple if you're a new player playing with a group of other new players. You got to have a strong debuff option, and Tractor Cannon is it. It is very, very good. Don't sleep on it if you're new, please. Next up, we have Song of Ir Yut, which is one of the better raid weapons from the Crota raid, which you can bring into PvE. I would prioritize trying to get a craftable Ir Yut if you don't have one yet and you enjoy playing PvE. It's got good options. It has both bait and switch and target lock in column 4, and it has rewind rounds and reconstruction in column 3. 2 excellent perks in each column, which you can use to completely abuse big, beefy enemies in PvE. I mentioned earlier with the Cataclysmic that there's a potential worry that bait and switch does get touched by Bungie for being too good. And if it does, it's fine because it has target lock. And Ir Yut, the Song of Ir Yut, is one of the few weapons capable of really being able to take advantage of max power target lock, which only ramps up to that level of power if you used over 100% of the mag, which you can do either via rewind rounds or, bless you, or reconstruction. That's okay. You can use rewind rounds or reconstruction to get to over 100% of the mag and take advantage of that extra damage from target lock. So it is a fantastic weapon. It is probably one of the least worried about upcoming nerfs or changes possible because it has great options across the board. It's just an exceptional PvE weapon. And hey, if both bait and switch and target lock get nerfed, I mean, there's sword logic. it's not a bad fallback option, but yeah, a terrific PvE weapon. If you don't have one crafted from the Crota raid yet, I would recommend doing that before Season 23 or before the final shape. Next on our PvE list, we have the Osteo Striga SMG, and this is such a go-to primary weapon for me for most new content. I feel like there's maybe 3 primary weapons or so total that I will bring to brand new PvE content if I have no idea what to expect. And Osteo Striga is one of them. It is an ad clear machine. When you have the Toxic Overload perk kicking in PvE, it is super easy to cause chain reactions and just everyone in the room, bam, poison, poison, poison. When I'm a warlock playing in PvE, I can pair it with the Necrotic Grip. It is just such a free, no thought, ad clear weapon. Head empty, trigger held down. And again, the tracers track. It's not like a normal hit scan SMG. It is a projectile SMG. The projectiles travel really quickly too, which is nice. But again, they track, so you don't really have to think about it. You can just enter a room, hold trigger down, tracks right to the enemy, bam, poison, 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 poison. It is super, super good at what it does. And I think when the weapon came out, a lot of people forgot about the existence of other PvE primary weapons for a while due to how efficient it was. So yeah, I hope it remains in my lineup for quite a while because I enjoy it very much. I think the design is really cool. It's got that Hot Topic edgy vibe that I like. And yeah, just really efficient at ad clear. Great weapon. Next up is the Commemoration machine gun, which has kind of a similar story to me that the Cataclysmic linear fusion rifle does, in which I got a god roll early after doing the Deepstone Crypt raid, and I didn't really need to get a craftable version of this gun. In my opinion, I got Reconstruction and Killing Tally, which is a fantastic combination of perks on this machine gun. I use the Commemoration a lot, again, in new PvE content. It's kind of part of my I don't really know what to expect build. I'm just going to bring something that I know is reliable and good across the board. Of course, you're going to have better options for dealing with big target damage, like if you're trying to DPS a boss. Obviously, there are many options which are going to perform better than the Commemoration machine gun. But for what it brings to the table, excellent. I have it in my back pocket, so Reconstruction is working over time to refill the mag, eventually up to double capacity. And then, you whip it out. And Killing Tally, you just smoke everybody in the room. You get a it's a very good weapon to use for, yellow bar ad clear. Not quite like a champion, but like the little orange bar guys. It's just really good. If you're in a tight spot, maybe you're in a very difficult piece of PvE content, like a Grandmaster Nightfall or something like that. And you don't want to have a give me space moment. You take out your Commemoration, you just gun everybody down. It punches really, really hard. If you're a Divinity user, which a lot of people in PvE would appreciate, Commemoration is a beautiful pairing for Divinity. Because again, it is kind of a power weapon that excels really well at ad clear, which a lot of people would laugh at. But hey, again, if you're the Divinity guy, why not? You're not going to be using your rocket launcher or whatever, maybe as much as other people, because you're going to be beaming with the Divinity. So why not have a weapon that can punch big holes in ads and orange bars and, other stuff like that? It's just a fantastic weapon, and I've had it for a while, and I really stand by it. It's a very good machine gun. Next, we have kind of a very boring pick, but I like it very much. The Other Half, or the Half Truths, whichever. They're kind of really similar, but it doesn't matter. You just need a list or I wanted an option on my list capable of eager edging in PvE, which, how original, Fallout. Oh, you like to eager edge in PvE? You're so special and unique. Yeah, it's fun. I really like eager edging. It's like if you're trying to zoom through an activity, it's just a fun thing to do. And I think a lot of PvE people have, either the Other Half or the Half Truths or whatever on speed dial. If they're trying to zoom through an activity, or just kind of, if you want to just goof around and be silly, it's just a great, fun weapon that I feel like newer players, go get an eager edge sword. You don't have to be that guy. There's always that one guy who kind of has like eager edging is like their whole PvE identity. It doesn't have to go that far. It's just fun. Like it ain't that deep. It's just fun. Zoom around the map, have a good time. Good weapon. Okay, next up, and I promise this is the final machine gun we will talk about on my PvE list, is the Retrofit Escapade. Retrofit Escapade is really, really, really good. I think when people started leaning into machine guns more, the retrofit was kind of front and center. Song of Ir Yut is kind of in the spotlight now for premier machine gun big boy boss damage, but Retrofit Escapade is still very good. And where I use Commemoration as more of a, hey, I've got the divinity, I need a weapon to really punch through, you know, orange bars and tough red bars or whatever, if I'm doing Grandmasters or whatever. If I'm in an activity where, for whatever reason, I want to bring void damage, maybe there's like a void activity surge and void weapons hit harder, you know, Retrofit Escapade could be on speed dial. And there was that hidden exotic mission that came out with the Wicked Implement Scout Rifle where you had to do that kind of time trial. And for a lot of people, including me, Retrofit Escapade really saved my bacon. All you had to do was take that final boss tormentor and just put them in a divinity bubble and then just unleash the beast with, you know, target lock, 4th times the charm, Retrofit Escapade, and you liquefied the guy. Like it's just a very reliable shredding option that I will absolutely consider. Been recording for a long time. If there is extra void damage being dealt on the field in PvE. Excellent weapon. There's other role options too if you want to kind of get into that. I just go with target lock 4th time because that's the basic bitch roll. But it's the basic bitch roll for a reason. It does its job very, very well. It's just the trigger, hold trigger down, gun go burr, big boss dies. Easy as that. Next up, we have a very fun weapon that I'm fond of bringing to day 1 raids, which is the Ager's Scepter. Still don't know how to say it correctly. I'm sure someone will try to tell me down in the comment section. But the Ager's Scepter, I really enjoy. Fun weapon in PvE if you play on stasis. The utility is great. When you have the thing charged up, you activate the exotic perk, and now it's going to eat away your super, which is kind of a bummer, but you are able to directly freeze people with your beam from the rifle, which is just excellent. It pairs very well with a lot of stasis builds. And again, I think even though on day 1 raids, I end up being a lot of the time either like the Radiant Warlock well, kind of a big go-to, or in recent memory, a Briar Void Warlock, which is also very fun. I always will have a stasis build in the back pocket that features Ager's Scepter. And I think it's really good at what it was built to do, which is just add clear. And when you want to take it up a notch to just beam people with the freeze beam and produce extra viability with the stasis shards and all that whatnot, it's just a very, very fun weapon. If you're a new player and you're thinking about like, you know, buying all the stasis stuff, it's a great weapon to complement a stasis build in PvE. Moving on, we come to Funnelweb. When Funnelweb dropped into D2 for the first time, people went crazy for this weapon. This was kind of the go-to premier add clear weapon primary for PvE activities. It is just still very good at what it does. It complements a lot of Void 3.0 builds very well. If you like playing Void, if I'm playing, you know, a volatile Void Bubble Titan, or if I'm playing a Briar Void Warlock, Funnelweb is probably going to be my go-to. It has a lot of very reliable perks on it for PvE. I go with Frenzy because it is extremely easy to take advantage of in PvE, unlike PvP where it's borderline a migraine every time you're trying to activate it if you don't have Gemini gestures. Frenzy gives you 15% extra damage for a number of seconds when turned on, and man, you can just shred through waves of ads with it. I think mine has Subsistence and Frenzy together, which is a terrific PvE ad clear combo. Again, it complements so many Void weapons, Void builds perfectly, and it is just one of my go-to default ad clear weapons in the game. It is just a titan of red bar shredding in PvE. Coming in at number 12, we have the Riptide Fusion Rifle, and surprise, surprise, the one that I enjoy using the most features Chill Clip, which is the go-to vanilla, overpowered, dope, badass, baller, fucking fuck you champion perk that everybody has on their Riptide for good reason. Chill Clip is a universally good PvE pick in any activity that features a champion, because a chill clip Riptide on a solar class is capable of dealing with any champion in the game. If you are Radiant, either by your own act or by a teammate making you Radiant, you now have the ability to damage and disrupt a barrier champion. And with Chill Clip on its own, it can deal with both Overload by the slow factor and Unstoppable champions by the freeze and shatter factor. So just because of that, Riptide with Chill Clip is kind of like the champion Swiss Army knife of the PvE community. It's, really reliable. I'll pair it together with any SMG, Funnelweb, Calus Mini-Tool, Ikelos SMG, whatever. It's just a really good backup pairing just in case you're like, oh, there's a champion in this activity. It doesn't matter. Well, I got it covered. Chill Clip Riptide. Good to go. Solid, reliable. I think if Bungie ever decided to remove champions from the game, not gonna happen. Riptide would immediately plummet in viability, but until that time, it is in my back pocket because F champions. Moving on, we come to Izanagi's Burden, which is going to be on my list until Bungie buries that thing 6 feet under. I don't think they ever will, but it is really, really good. You're going to have to take that bad boy from my cold, dead hands. If you're new, if you're a veteran, you already know why it's really good. If you're new, I'll explain it to you. It is part of a very key strategy called Izanagi rocket swapping. I mean, it's called many things, but you just call it whatever. Izanagi rocket swapping. So basically you have a rocket launcher with auto loading holster, and you have your Izanagi's Burden, which you can power up the damage of by mashing the reload button and just combining all the bullets in the mag into one super bullet. So you do that. So now you have your rocket launcher and you have your super powered up Izanagi's Burden one shot, right? You fire a rocket launcher at a target, swap to your Izanagi, which you've prepared in advance. You hit him with the big magic power-up FU bullet, and now you reload Izanagi right there and then, and if you do it quickly enough, you can avoid the first reload and just go right into another magic bullet super reload, and by the time you're done doing that, your auto-loading rocket launcher should have auto-loaded itself. So you now swap back to your rocket launcher, and you do the whole thing over again. Rocket into swap to Izanagi, big FU bullet, reload FU bullet, go back to rocket launcher, auto-loaded, rinse and repeat. So doing that is really big, awesome burst damage. Despite that being basically one of the best DPS strategies in the game, it's going to depend. Not every boss situation in the game will rely on that specific strategy. Great example would be Crota. I think that the go-to situation on that is always going to be sword damage. Crota takes more damage from swords in general, and he runs around a lot, and you knock him down, he's kneeling. It's just close. It's just built for sword combat. So Izanagi isn't going to be the go-to solution for every boss fight, every big DPS check, whatever. But you should always be ready to use that option if it is available to you, because rocket swapping into Izanagi, fucking phenomenal. Big burst damage, which should not be ignored, especially if you're pairing it with one Gallarhorn on the team to take advantage of the wolf pack rounds. Just an excellent strategy. If you're a new player, try to get some practice in with that at the disc coin thing at the Enclave, because it's really, really good. Moving right along, we have the Apex Predator rocket launcher, which I'm sure a lot of people very much expected would be here. It is really, really good in PvE. Nothing fancy. I have the go-to role that a lot of people I'm sure have, which is Reconstruction bait and switch. Not quite, auto-loading to be paired with Izanagi, but, Reconstruction is like the same thing. Like, you put the rocket launcher in your backpack, you store it away, and it's going to reload over time, but because it's a rocket launcher with Reconstruction, it'll overload to double capacity, which is great. Because reloading on a rocket launcher is a big pain in the dick. And again, bait and switch is a completely goated extra damage PvE perk. You tag the enemy with damage from your two other weapons. Now you switch to your Apex. You hit him. You've activated bait and switch, and now you get 35% extra damage for your next rocket. And you just keep slapping them with it. It's like it's such a good damage dealing rocket launcher. It's absurd. If you haven't gotten a crafted one from the Last Wish raid, the good news is that farming deep sight weapons from the Last Wish raid is actually not difficult to do at all. I have a guide on that. I'll try to remember. It's a long video. I'll try to remember to link that guide down in the comment section, because if you're a new player, if you don't have a crafted Apex, you're really going to want one if you want to get into higher level difficulty PvE content, because it's just really, really good. Back in the day, it was kind of like a meme, like, oh, must have Gallarhorn or Kick. I would argue that these days it's probably close to must have bait and switch, reconstruction, Apex, or Kick, because it really is that good of a weapon for PvE. Next on the list, we have Wish Ender, which I think a couple of years ago, if you had told me that I would have been such a big fan of this weapon, I would have told you you're crazy. But yeah, Wish Ender is very, very good. I think it is on my super short list of if I'm going into a GM, Grandmaster Nightfall, then I'm like, do I want to put together a loadout? Do I want to waste time putting together a loadout, or do I just want to maybe turn my brain off and just bring Wish Ender? Are there barrier champions? Okay, I'm bringing Wish Ender. Like, it's so solid. You can just, if you're a new player and you're looking for maybe like an entry-level Grandmaster Nightfall weapon to help you with that level of content, check out Wish Ender. It's just so turn brain off. You can sit at the back of the map and plink enemies from downtown. It hits extremely hard. It overpenetrates targets. If you're worried about a Screeb popping up behind a corner or something like that, taking your life, it has that little wall hack feature, although I think that is probably more of a viable strategy in PvP than a feature for a PvE weapon. But it has that, and it deals extra damage to taken enemies, which is extra nice. And on top of that, it can deal with barrier champions. It is really, really good. I used to enjoy using Arbalest a lot as my go-to weapon for smacking barrier champions in the face, but Wish Ender is a primary weapon, so you don't need to worry about running low on ammo. And yeah, it just hits really, really hard. It's a good weapon that I love using for endgame PvE content, especially if I'm in situations where I'm not right up close to the enemy. If I have a lot of space and I'm just going to treat them like a shooting gallery from downtown, it's very difficult to argue with Wish Ender. Next up is a weapon which might win the award for most day one raids that I have brought this damn gun to, which is the Truthteller grenade launcher. Truthteller is excellent. I think I mentioned earlier that I very frequently will bring my Osteo Striga SMG to activities that I'm not really sure what I'm getting into. If it's like a brand new activity, what do I use? I'll use Osteo Striga. This is a great pairing for the Osteo Striga. The Truthteller, the only role that I will ever care about is disorienting grenades, formerly known as blinding grenades, paired with auto-loading holster. Column 4, I don't give a shit. It'd be whatever. I mean, I think mine is Disruption Break, which is great if I am going up against a target and I happen to de-shield them. If they're a void target, you match the elements, you de-shield them. Great, now they're going to take more damage. I mean, in a perfect world, Quick Draw would be cool. Swashbuckler for more damage on red bars. Great, whatever. I really don't care. Auto-loading disorienting is the only really thing that I care about on that gun. You fire a grenade into a crowd, you hold down the trigger until it's right in the dead center, you let go, grenade goes off, don't really care how much damage it does, it blinds everybody in the club, and then you swap to Osteo and you poison the room. And that is the extent. It does one job, to blind as many people as it can and auto-reload itself while you're gunning them down with whatever kinetic primary you have. And then when it auto-reloads, you swap right back to it, blind everybody again. It is so good in endgame content. Dungeons, raids, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's blinding enemies in PvE is absurdly strong. If you don't know what to bring to a day one raid and you just kind of want to help, if you have any blinding grenade launcher, that'll be really good. But again, the auto-loading combined with the blinding is just insanely viable. And I will always enjoy doing that. It always helps. Because if the enemy is blind in PvE, they don't do anything. They just walk around rubbing their eyes like a bunch of idiots. And then your team has free reign to bend them over a barrel. Like, they're just going to get destroyed. So I will always have at least one, probably two loadouts on every class that I have going into a day one raid that features my God Roll Truthteller, a weapon that will, talked about for PvP, having jerseys up in the rafter to honor. I will eventually, when D2 is dead, whenever that happens, I will have a jersey hanging up for Truthteller without question. Moving on, we have another rarity, which is a weapon that has been featured already on the PvP side, being also featured on the PvE side of weapons that I cannot live without, and that is the Ikelos SMG. I commented on how really good it felt in PvP, which I still believe it does. It completely beams people, but in PvE, it is my go-to primary weapon if I am using an Arc build, if I'm using a Thunder Crash Arc Titan or a Warlock, I don't know, Chaos Reach, whatever, it just doesn't matter. I'm probably going to be using, my primary will likely be the Ikelos SMG because it has Volt Shot, which is, it's been nerfed since its initial debut, but it is still a really consistent good perk in PvE. You get a kill, you reload, now you got Chain Lightning coming out of your primary. It's just silly. I mean, the Chain Lightning isn't going to be as good as something like Trinity Ghoul, which I've already mentioned being very good and on my list today. But really, it's just as simple as having Feeding Frenzy, Volt Shot on a crafted Ikelos weapon on an Arc build. Perfect pairing. Can't get any better than that pairing. It's just such a staple, and it's just really efficient and effective. And as long as Volt Shot doesn't get completely buried or removed from the game, I will enjoy using it in PvE, especially in any activity where I am going to be dealing more arc damage. Okay, so we've talked about Funnelweb, we've talked about the Ikelos SMG, so we have our Void option covered for primary weapon, we've had our Arc primary weapon option covered. Now we come to Solar, which is the Calus Mini-Tool. Calus Mini-Tool is just the exact same thing as the other SMGs I've talked about, but it's Solar. I think I've gotten my Calus Mini-Tool before I got my Funnelweb, before I got my Ikelos, I think. I'm gonna have to double check that, but it is probably the one I've used the most. And the role that I have, which a lot of people have, is Unrelenting and Incandescent, which is such a terrific combo for PvE. I know it doesn't take a lot of effort or energy, or it's not difficult to shred through red bar enemies in PvE, but Calus Mini-Tool does so in a very satisfying way that I will never not enjoy. It's just the ability to light up the room with Scorch due to Incandescent, and then also being able to repeatedly get health back with Unrelenting is just such an easy free combo. I pair together a Calus Mini-Tool with things like a Wither Horde all the time. Such a great, no thought, head empty pairing if you're just looking to go into any activity and just do respectable damage. Again, it kind of depends what activity I'm going into, but there with your SMGs, you have a lot of your options covered. If you have, you're dealing extra void damage, go Funnelweb. You're dealing extra arc damage, go Ikelos. You're dealing extra solar damage, go Calus Mini-Tool. It's just excellent. I love mine to death. I don't know if Bungie will ever make a solar primary weapon that I will use more than my Calus Mini-Tool. Next up, we have a very obvious contender, worthy of the top 5, which is Gjallarhorn, an iconic, if you picture in your head, iconic exotics across the entire Destiny IP as a whole, Gjallarhorn absolutely must fit into that picture, or you must be a complete newcomer to the franchise. It's like the iconic exotic for PvE, right? Gjallarhorn, and not only is it iconic just because it looks cool and it has kind of a history with the community, kind of a funny history with the community, but it's good. Gjallarhorn is really, really good. Rockets do excellent big burst damage in PvE, and if you're in an activity where the team is relying on dealing rocket damage to a big boss, one person will have Gjallarhorn or your team is throwing. Gjallarhorn has the ability, when fired, to give all nearby rocket launcher users Wolfpack rounds for free, which is just adding primo extra damage on top of the damage pile, right? But even if you're a solo player, Gjallarhorn is really good, especially depending on your overall loadout, because It's got a 2 mag by default, which is great. I play Warlock for the most part in PvE. If you pair it together with Rain of Fire and Icarus Dash, that's a really fun combo to burn through lost sectors with. You just auto reload and while scooting around with your Icky Dash. It's just, I love Gallarhorn a lot. It's beautiful, it's iconic, it's classic. I think everyone was really happy when it got brought back into D2 because it was in D1 and then it wasn't in D2 at launch. Eventually got pulled in way late, but I think people really were happy about it because it's a very iconic weapon. And again, it's kind of vital for a lot of top damage dealing strategies. So absolutely a weapon that I can't live without for PvE. Coming in at number 4 might be what I think is probably the best exotic to ever exist in PvE, which is Divinity. Divinity, right when it entered the game, everybody knew it was going to be insane, and it has had a long-lasting, dominant PvE legacy in D2. Like, it's just very, very, very good. It's hard to picture a world where Divinity is not vital in endgame PvE. Even with the fact that it's not the, quote, strongest debuff to bring into PvE. If you compare it to Tractor Cannon is a 30% debuff on the target, but Divinity is only 15%. It's half that. But where Divinity really shines is the fact that it also has added utility by putting a big glowing blue cage, bubble, whatever, around the enemy, right? Meaning it's basically impossible for you or any of your teammates to whiff a shot unless you're really disoriented or make a bad mistake or something like that. So Bungie is leaning more into having raid bosses or end game bosses or whatever that are mobile, that move around. Think of the Vow of the Disciple raid where you had, you know, the disciple, he's going around and he's got the long slender frame and he's zooming and kicking people in the face, and you know, it's just gone are the days where every raid boss is just a big blob that just kind of sits stationary in one target, has a big easy to hit crit spot. Things are getting tricky now, and the more tricky boss fights you have, like Vow, like the Ir Yut encounter in the Crota raid, the more helpful it is to have a weapon like Divinity, because you're putting them in a bubble, in a cage, where, yeah, the debuff is weaker, but you're not going to miss a shot. And with certain options like bait and switch, where like you just really don't want to miss your activation window or whatever, like, or things like target lock, where missing is devastating to your damage output, or trying to get ammo back in the mag via something like third times the charm, or triple tap or fourth times the charm. Things like Divinity are essential. And it's a hard to obtain weapon for a lot of people, just because people don't like the Garden Raid and the quest is really weird to get the exotic, but it's a staple weapon. I love it. I will always have it in my loadout for a day 1 raid or a dungeon or whatever, because it is just that good. Coming in at number 3 is Forbearance, a weapon that is so good at what it does that it has rendered a lot of weapons in D2 like almost useless. Forbearance is exceptional. It is a wave frame grenade launcher, which on its own is very good in PvE. I think most people in PvE, if they're using a wave frame grenade launcher, with the exception of Forbearance, prefer auto-loading holster for the same reason that I enjoy my blinding Truthteller. You fire a grenade into the crowd with a wave frame, goes along the floor, hurts everybody, swap to a primary, damage, 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 it auto-reloads, which if you had to do manually is very annoying. You swap back to it, more wave frame, GG, no re. Forbearance, for the most part, some people like Unrelenting for the health regen factor, but for the most part, the combo is Ambitious Assassin and Chain Reaction, and that is the go-to combo that people are going to use until they die, quit the game, or until Bungie takes it away. It is an exceptional weapon perk combo. I see a lot of people trying to do certain encounters, raids where their focus is ad clear, and it's like a lot of them are making their lives harder by not using this weapon, because it makes a lot of raid encounters a joke. Like the Planet Room in the Root of Nightmares raid, that encounter, if you're on ad clear, Forbearance almost makes that encounter a joke. You just fire one time, everybody dies, and then you reload it. Now you have 2 in the mag. Like, it's just so good at what it does. It's just exceptional ad clear. I think you could bring that into, even if you're in an activity where you're not dealing extra arc damage, it's good. Yeah, if someone brought it into an activity where there was a solar burn, I maybe wouldn't really bat an eye, because it's like, oh, well, I get it. You're using Forbearance. Like, it's just that good of a gun. If you're new to the game, I would put it on, if you're new to the game and trying to get into end game PvE stuff, I would put that crafted gun on the short list of things that you should prioritize obtaining, because it is that effective. Moving on, we have Quicksilver Storm at number 2. When Quicksilver Storm dropped into the game, I really didn't think much of it, but I don't know, I am a content creator. When new content drops in, I'm often pulled in many different directions. Oh, make a guide on this, make a guide on that. And Quicksilver Storm kind of fell to the wayside, and I sort of wish that I had prioritized it, because it's a gun that I've really fallen in love with for PvE. And it has the problem where it's almost so good that it renders a lot of other primary weapons kind of useless, especially if you're in an activity where you're dealing extra damage with a strand weapon. Dude, that's the final nail in the coffin. Bring your Quicksilver Storm. It will only deal strand damage if you have the exotic catalyst unlocked, which will change it from a regular kinetic to strand damage. But it's just so good. It's just reliable, and the best part by far is the fact that you can convert it basically into a special weapon for free by using the weapon no differently than you normally would. You just use the weapon, you rack up, grenade shot charges, you hold down the reload button, you convert the gun into a grenade launcher on the spot. And as you shoot grenades, I keep telling people to do this. Every time I mention this, at least one person is like, oh, I didn't know you could do that, which is good enough for me. You mash the reload button, kind of quickly. You're manually hitting the reload button after you fire each grenade, and you are going to end up reloading the gun much faster than if you just did not hit the reload button. Like, if you're hitting fire grenade and you're letting the game reload or kind of prepare the next grenade shot, it's going to take way longer. Trust me, mash the reload button after shooting each grenade, and you'll be dishing those bad boys out rapid fire. And the fact that you can dish out that much damage with a primary weapon for free is just ridiculous. Quicksilver Storm is my go-to gun for a lot of new PvE activities. Usually it's either Truthteller paired with either a Osteo Striga or a Quicksilver Storm. And that's just kind of all she wrote. It's that good of a gun. It's almost a problem because I use it so much that I ignore other things, but really, really great weapon. Love it to death. Coming in at number 1 on my PvE weapons that I can't live without, Battue would be ashamed if he knew this, but I don't care. It's Witherhoard. I've had conversations with other content creators before. I'm amazed that Battue does not have. I love this weapon. I love Witherhoard. It's so good. It's not the best weapon. It's not the best weapon in the game by a mile, but it's so good at giving you breathing room. I love the design. I use it in so many of my builds. If I'm using Funnelweb, if I'm using Calus Mini-Tool, if I'm using Ikelos SMG, if I'm using a bunch of, name an energy primary weapon for PvE, there's a really good shot that if I'm not pairing it with a Riptide to F up champions, I'm using a Witherhoard. Witherhoard is just so good, especially I bring it to almost every day 1 raid to just give your team extra breathing room in rooms where you're getting overwhelmed by ridiculous amounts of red bar enemies, which can be devastating on, a day 1 contest mode raid, because those things are no joke. They'll knock you the F out, bro. So the exotic catalyst makes Witherhoard even better if you're a new player and you're kind of figuring out, like, this gun doesn't feel very good. You need the exotic catalyst. It gives you auto-loading holster on the gun for free. So basically you shoot an enemy either directly for the chip damage, or you just shoot it on the floor, and then you swap to whatever gun that you have, and damage, it auto loads, you swap back to it. You just fill the room with green goo on the floor. It makes ad clear a breeze, and it can fit into a lot of damage dealing builds as well, including it pairs very well with bait and switch, because with bait and switch weapons, you're swapping, your weapons a lot, trying to, deal damage with each gun, so you can trigger bait and switch to begin with. So it's great because you can fire Wither Horde either at the floor if there's a lot of enemies running around near the boss, so you can damage the boss with Wither Horde on the floor, and enemies who run into the area, they get hurt too. Swap to your primary weapon, probably be an SMG for me, damage that, and then you swap to your bait and switch power and you're good to go. And you're not worried about reactivating it again later because you know that Wither Horde comes with auto-loading holster and you have another shot already good to go in the chamber. It is a weapon I love so much. I will always use it in PvE. I know it's not the best PvE gun, but I really think it's something special. And there you go, my entire list of 50 weapons for both PvE and PvP that I really love and can't live without. But I would love to hear what you think. Do you think that options on my list are trash? Do you have your own list of 50 or 20 or 10 or whatever weapons that you can't live without in PvE or PvP? Please share whatever those might be down in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. If you're new to the channel, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoy the more casual, long form types of video on my channel, let me know by clicking the like button. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on stream.